Islam and feminism. Does Islam believe in feminism and equality between the genders? This is a very generic question because in order to answer it, you have to define what do you mean by feminism if it is simply demanding the rights that Islam has allocated to women, such as in some cultures, they deprive women from the rights of inheritance. In some cultures, they get a woman married against her will. Therefore, it is acceptable if both you and I demand these rights. There are two types of people who advocate for equal rights. One liberal and the others is Islamic feminists, means they accept what Islam says in Quran and Hadith. Liberalism feminist. Their demand is illogical. They make demands like this, which is completely illogical. Why doesn't she lead the prayer? Why can't she be a ruler? Why can't she be a judge? Why can't she mix with men? Why can't she give a azan in mosque? Why can't she be an octagon fighter? Men in Islam can marry more than one woman, so why can't women have multiple husbands? This is all not related to Islam, and anyone calling for such things may risk getting out of the fold of Islam when it comes to equality. Allah says in the Quran, men shall take full care of women with the bounties Allah has bestowed on them, and what they may spend out of their possession, as Allah has eschewed each with certain qualities in relation to the other. And the righteous women are the truly devout ones, who guard the intimacy which Allah has ordained to be guarded. Therefore, this concept of feminism is totally against Islam, and unfortunately some speakers, women who are Muslims, they address men. They speak to men without any shame, without any bashfulness, and never the companion females, the mother of the believers, have done such a heinous thing. But unfortunately, it's the culture, it's the system, it's when you see something everywhere you become brainwashed and you fall into such a mistake. Islamic feminist. When Islam was first introduced, there was high ignorance. It was literally called the days of Jahala in Arabic, which means ignorance. It was because no respect was given to women whatsoever. In fact, when daughters were born, they were buried alive because they were thought to bring shame to families. Sons were the ones that were given honor. It was very hard times for women to survive in that society, so Islam was revealed. And this was in Makkah, which is now Saudi Arabia. And all of a sudden they completely changed the idea of what women are supposed to be. So let's start with a few examples. Women, like I said, were buried alive. They had no say in anything whatsoever. Maybe political, maybe employment education, but all of a sudden Islam allowed women to vote to partake in political activities and be important parts of society. And this was 600 CE. When did the US do that? We did this in the 1920s, right? So we were about 13 centuries late now. If I were to go to another example, ownership of property in Europe. As some of you might know, if you were to own property, you had to transfer it to your husband once you got married. And then a bill was passed in the 1870s to let women keep ownership of that property. Islam doesn't have anything of that sort. You can keep as much investments or property that a woman might own, and she has no responsibility to transfer it to her husband when she gets married. And again, that was in 600 CE, and we did this in the 1870s. So for this, we were about 12 centuries late. Let's go to income now. Income is also related to your property, your investment, because there were equal employment and education opportunities for women. Now women were earning money. And now what Islam says about women, if a woman is to earn, she does not have the duty to invest a single cent in her local household so she can do whatever she wants with it. She can keep it first. She can save it for something she could spend it on, whatever she wills. But her husband or her parents or her children do not have the right to tell her, since you're earning, you should be the breadwinner of the family. In fact, the man is supposed to be responsible to do that. Now, some people may argue, okay, so all of a sudden now we're giving men more, a woman more rights. In a sense, what we're doing here was kind of like affirmative action. Previously, women were oppressed, and so Islam comes along and goes like, you know what, we're going to give some certain rights, more certain rights to women, and value it out with men in some other situation. If you were to actually do a cost-benefit analysis of the benefits and costs of being a woman or a man in Islam, you'd actually found that we were very equal. And so this is literally what a jar would look like because of the lack of income like income expenditure in the house by the woman. Her jar would probably be much more filled with coins than the man's. Another point that I'd like to come to is motherhood. Once a woman gives birth to a child or adopts a kid automatically, her status in Islam is elevated to extreme degrees. One of the examples is that Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, He was the one who brought Islam to the society, and a man approached him and asked him, "Who is in society deserves my respect and kindness?" And so the Prophet replied, "Your mother." And then he said, "Who next?" And Prophet replied, "Your mother." And then the man asked, "Who next?" And the Prophet again replied, "Your mother." And then the man asked one last time, "Who next?" And then the Prophet replied, "Your father." So this doesn't mean that you don't respect your father at all. Of course, what it means is that your mother actually deserves 3 times more respect than your dad does just because she had to bury with you for 9 months, and the physical pain that she had to go through and the sacrifices that she had to make. And also the Prophet says that once you're a mother, paradise lies under your feet. Is Islam a feminist religion? With these examples, I'd just like to say that I might have proven to you that yes, maybe that Islam is feminist religion, or I might not have. But if someone were come to me and tell me, "Oh, so are you a feminist?" I'd probably just be like, "No, I'm just a Muslim because I don't need to be a feminist." Another example I'd like to give you of Fatma Al-Fari. She was a Moroccan princess, and she was the first person to open up a formal university that gave out degrees. So the fact that you and I reading this gaining degrees or we're teaching degrees is because of her. And this was the 9th century, so this is not the 1800s, the 1700s, this is 800 CE, so this is just 800 years after Christianity came along. So these are just a few examples of women doing spectacular things, of Muslim women doing spectacular things. So the contemporary fundamentalist definitions of women not being important parts of society in Islamic societies is actually, it's very wrong. So if you were to go back to the basic principles of Islam, feminism was very much prevalent. And if I request you after this blog, if you have been convinced, if someone comes up to you and says, "Oh no, Islam is oppressive, it's primitive, it's not made for contemporary times, and it's definitely not feminist," you just be like, "Dear Islam was a hipster in feminism, thank you."